Elves, nothing too out of the ordinary here. I mean, this is very close to the Matt Nass style build that we saw at Grand Prix Denver, that has incorporated natural order as another tutor target and as a backup plan with Progenitus. So,
nasty elves.
Yeah. But this Enchantress, there's been kind of a new build popularized by Andrew Cuneo online that tries to go off with Words of Wind. This is a much more conventional list built around solitary confinement.
Yeah. And against combo elves, I'm wondering if he has any ways to get like solitary confinement off the board once he does go off. Is there anything that he can really do about that?
It doesn't look good. No, I do not. I think he's called the solitary confinement game 1. It would appear.
Also, a card that is interesting and good against combo elves, oddly enough, is Blind Obedience.
Yeah.
When the deck is trying to go off via, it glimpses and then it puts the elves into play for Nettle Sentinel, and the Nettle Sentinel might need a little bit of help to continue going off. Well, your creatures are coming to play tapped, so.
Blind Obedience is pretty good against Sneak Attack too. I mean, there's definitely stuff in the format where it's weirdly powerful.
Maybe extort you down a little bit. Maybe that's the kill.
I think probably Sigil is the primary. Primary path.
Only one of those.
Or Emrakul.
Yeah, Emrakul typically a way to win a game. As we do see Chad Bass. We might have the name switched here actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a Deathrite Charm. Yeah, so we have elves on the left. And we'll flip that around for you guys at home. Chad on the right here, gonna sacrifice a Windswept Heath as we are underway here in game number 1 between Enchantress and Elves. Chris Anderson definitely watching from above.
Yes. Did he die or something?
No.
Oh, from above, because you said watching from above.
I did.
Okay, well that's usually an expression used to refer to the deceased.
Not in this particular case.
All right, well I hope Chris Anderson's not dead.
He's not.
Since that's, I guess, unclear. Chad's going to lead off with what appears to be a wild growth here. And you saw him fetch a basic there instead of getting a Savannah. Michael Thompson's opening actually is probably a stronger indicator of bug than it is of...
Or Jund.
Or Jund, yeah. So he wants to be wasteland proof here. Michael taking his time here. A lot of paths for this tech to take. You're sort of, the tension of playing elves is developing your board enough that you have sufficient mana to go off while leaving enough in the chamber where if you glimpse you have enough gas to go off in your hand. Yeah. So there's a mixture of wanting to develop your board but leave enough in reserves that when you do glimpse you have enough creatures in your hand to go off with.
So you do see Michael trying to figure out the best way to go about doing this. You do see a Heritage Druid in his hand right now. There's also a Natural Order hiding over there and a Nettle Sentinel. So he does definitely has some plays. So you're going to see Nettle Sentinel lead things off here. Also see 2 copies of Wire with Symbiote as well.
Yeah. So now the jig is up if Chad has any knowledge of the format.
Yeah. So Deathrite Shaman's going to remove the Misty Rainforest to add some manas. And you're going to see another copy of Deathrite Shaman, which conveniently is an elf.
Yeah. As if it didn't do enough already.
Yeah. So now we are going to see in our Growth and Enchantress come into play one of the card drawing engines for this deck, the New Age. You can't get that one by me. Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, I've been fooled by that more than once. So
as have I.
Now I know.
That art is misleading.
Yeah, it's cool when you're playing, but less cool for doing commentary. Just one moment here as we have a slight technical hiccup. All right.
No one wants to watch Lord of Atlantis. He's boring.
Yeah, we know what that one does. So our Grow the Enchantress is in play, and if you haven't played against Enchantress before, that means if Chad has a sufficiently powerful hand, the game is maybe 2 turns away from getting locked up.
Yeah.
Usually, there's a turn where Grow the Enchantress gets played, there's a turn where a lot of development occurs, and then the following turn is where you reach the point of no return.
So it's going to be important here for Michael to be able to do something big and flashy on this particular turn.
Yes.
And again, if Chad does get to untap, he can do something just as simple as playing Solitary Confinement And as we have identified here, assuming our information is correct, Michael can't beat it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing a way out.
He can draw a ton of cards. He can do a lot of things, but it looks like he is reliant on a Craterhoof Behemoth to get the job done.
Yeah.
For the most part, and that's not going to do it. So now we are going to see a Heritage Druid join the party.
Tapping for 3 mana.
We're going to have 2 mana here. We're going to see a Wild Symbiote. Nettle Sentinel is going to untap because of the trigger. Green spell was played. Now the big question here is, can he generate enough mana and have enough attackers to get a natural order for a Craterhoof Behemoth and end this game on turn 3? That's the big question. You see, he's going to flip Wire with Symbiote upside down to signify that he is using it this turn, returning an elf, untapping a creature.
So we're going to go down to 1 mana.
There's your Heritage Druid again, up to 4.
And this is going to untap the Nettle Sentinel, and we have Deathrite Shaman at the ready to attack.
Yep.
All right, so Wirewood Symbiote, that's going to untap this. Down to 3 mana. Are we actually netting mana through these iterations?
I think we're netting 1.
Yeah, I believe we're currently netting 1 through each symbiote play.
Yeah. Now, if he natural orders right now, because he started the turn here with a Nettle Sentinel, a Deathrite Shaman, and a Heritage Druid, correct? Or
Yes.
2 Deathrite Shamans. He started the turn with 2 Deathrite Shamans and a Nettle Sentinel. So if we were to untap this one,
we have enough.
return that, and then we natural order here, sacrificing one of these Wirewood symbiotes for Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yep.
I'm almost positive that's enough damage.
Yeah, I mean it's infinite. Well, not infinite, but it's. I believe we're way over lethal.
Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Craterhoof Behemoth is going to give these bad boys trample and what looks to be +5/+5.
Yes.
This is Brad Nelson's invitational card.
Right.
This is one of his favorite monsters.
And this is. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 1, 2, 3, 28, 29. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Turn 3 kill with no glimpse necessary.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about having that natural order engine. You just have a backup plan instead of having to go full infinite. Because we've seen elves in the past where you can do everything that you want, but if you don't find a glimpse, the deck's pretty anemic.
Yeah.
And natural order gives you a way of going off when you draw a bunch of creatures, which you're prone to do, without glimpse. So it's a good addition to the deck.
Taking a look at Chad's deck here, first and foremost, trying not to die on turn 3. He's got a very good idea of what he's playing against now. Blind Obedience, he has a 3rd one in his sideboard. That looking pretty good in the game that we just watched. If he would have had one, would have been quite the time buyer. Other than that, he has a copy of Oblivion Ring, which there are just too many different things you need to hit in this matchup for that really to be very good. Rule of Law is an interesting one, however. Slows down the elf player a ton, slows himself down in the process. But again, the longer the game goes, I think the more that's going to favor Chad, so that might be okay. Other than that, though, I mean, his sideboard is mostly cards that can be found via Enlightened Tutor. Mostly enchantments here, no mash remove or anything like that. So I think that's about all we're going to see. I mean, the options of Choke, Rest in Peace, Rune Halo, and Seal of Primordium, along with Pivot Needle, are just not very exciting.
Yep. And on the other side, Michael's actually got a reasonable amount of action for the matchup. He has Thoughtseize and Cabal Therapy and Abrupt Decay, all of which are quite good.
Yep.
He has 2 copies of Mindbreak Trap, which in theory seem all right in terms of the Enchantress deck once it gets the ball rolling. is playing multiple spells in a turn, but usually the damage is already done. You can't really fight on that access. You need to be preemptively stopping Enchantress from doing its thing, not trying to stop them at the point that they're going off. He has a Singleton Progenitus, which I don't think he wants here because I think that that's more of a plan for Rug or decks like that, maybe Jund. But here his Crater Hope Behemoth plan is just much better.
Agreed.
He has a Pride Mage, another Natural Order, and a Harmonic Sliver, all of which are valuable as just additional disenchants.
Kind of funny because he has a lot of hate against an Enchantress deck, incidentally.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he came here trying to beat an Enchantress deck, but it certainly doesn't hurt that he has all of these cards that happen to be good against it and a ton of ways to go about finding them.
Yeah, so he definitely gets to improve pretty significantly at their board. Although, and again, I bring this up a lot when I'm watching decks like Elves, which are just engine decks, is how do you find room for everything that you need here?
Yep.
I mean, if you're bringing in 7 cards, everything in your deck is either mana or utility guys that also facilitate you going off, or the actual engine pieces, things like Glimpse and Natural Order. There's not really a lot of wiggle room. And even though he has a lot of cards to bring in, it's hard to find room to cut, really, because the reason the deck is built like this in the first place is because all the pieces are integral. Yep. And so you can't really just cut 8 cards and preserve what your deck's trying to do.
And I really think that this is one of the hardest decks to sideboard with in Legacy, if not the hardest. Again, for all the points that you've just laid out, I was discussing this with Osip Lebedovich last week, or 2 weeks ago when we were in Dallas. It's just like, how do you sideboard with this deck? What are you supposed to cut? You know, the reason that you can play so few lands in your deck is because you have all these mana acceleration guys. I can't imagine you being able to chop down on those. And then, you know, your Nettle Sentinels and your Heritage Druids of the world all seem far too important. And is there really a world where you're going to sideboard out your Glimpse of Natures or Green Sun Zeniths? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, I would have to assume that all the 4-ofs in this deck are pretty much non-negotiable. Maybe you can cut one of them. And the 4-ofs are Aquarian, Ranger, Nettle Sentinel, Heritage Druid, Wirewood Symbiote, Eldritch Visionary, and Deathbright Shaman. And then Glimpse and Green Sun Zenith. So I assume if those are 4-ofs, those are considered to be so integral to the deck that those are kind of non-negotiable. Here, maybe he can cut the Scavenging Ooze, because that's more of a bullet for graveyard decks and not something that's integral to the engine. But that still leaves a lot of slots where he's trying to find room. So,
what to do?
Yeah, I make the same comment all the time. I see these show and tell decks that look like they have 8 cards to bring in for the mirror for the blue deck, and the deck's all sneak attacks, show and tells, the guys, and then cantrips and counters.
No.
So I'm not sure where you're actually making room to bring in 8 cards.
No. Sounds like Chris Anderson needs to write an article about this.
Right.
If anyone knows, it sounds like it'd be him.
Well, Michael's in a unique place here, as you mentioned. He's not really anticipating playing against Enchantress, and it just so happens that his sideboard cards, which I'm sure are individually just for different matchups, all happen to just overlap here very well. And so, you know, I feel like you got to try to find. It's probably worth trying to find the space because all these cards are good, but at the same time, it's easy to overdo it and just not have enough to slow you're either going to slow your deck down too much or be too inconsistent, or cast Glimpse and not be able to go off because you have all these reactive cards. And so striking that balance is the challenge here for Michael.
Just a lot of different things that can go wrong. So we do see both players looking at opening 7 cards. It looks like Michael's pretty happy, and Chad is as well. So we have a Windswept Heath sacrifice, bringing Chad down to 19, and we are underway here in Game 2 of Enchantress versus Elves. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan in the booth here at Star City Games Open Series in Atlanta. You can join us on Twitter, join the conversation at SCG Live or hashtag SCGATL. Let us know what you're thinking as far as good Legacy decks moving forward, probably the impact of Gatecrash, and what you think about these Enchantress and Elves decks.
Yeah, and this is more of a more conventional old school Enchantress build, not the Cuneo style that's been popping up online.
This is super old school. Typically, you know, in my mind, when I think of Enchantress, I think of green-white, Savannah, you know, solitary confinement, and being able to draw cards through that so it's not an actual liability, instead of the blue-green deck that Andrew Cuneo has been playing online on his stream. But that deck is different, but he's also been having a lot of success with it as well.
No, I think that deck is super good. I think it's challenging to pilot. I think it's hard to finish rounds in time, potentially, if you're not used to the operation. So I'm not sure it's a great call for everyone looking to play that deck in a tournament, but it is super good.
Yeah.
I watched him easily beat turn 1 14 goblins while he was on the draw.
Jeez.
Yeah. So the deck's for real.
It had to have involved elephant grass to start, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That makes me sad. If you don't care about 14 goblins on turn 1.
The guy never got to attack.
Yeah.
And eventually they all got words of wind back to. It was hilarious. I enjoyed it tremendously. But Chad, you know, a much more conventional plan of either trying to get Emerald Golden play, take an extra turn, go off with Sigil of the Empty Throne, or lock someone with Solitary Confinement.
Yep. And we're going to see a Green Sun Zenith here from Michael. Search out the old Dryad Arbor, see if he's got the new one or the old one.
He had 1 Arbor in his opening hand, and he's playing 2 in his list.
Okay. So Zenith being used as an mana accelerant right now. Sarah's Sanctum looks like it's going to join play here, but we're actually just going to see a Verdant Catacombs, and we're going to see a Blind Obedience, the new card here from Gatecrash. Artifacts and creatures are going to enter the battlefield tapped, and of course the Extort mechanic tacked on there as well.
I believe this is a Gatecrash debut, right, for our coverage today?
Yeah, definitely for today. I think we may have seen it in one of the rounds yesterday. I'm not 100% positive, but either way, it is here. It's a card that a lot of people have been talking about, wondering where it does fit in. How many copies of this card can you potentially play in a deck? You see Chad's deck list has 2 in his main deck and 1 in his sideboard, so 3 throughout the 75.
And that takes a ton of sting out of the Critter Hoof Behemoth plan.
Yes. In a big, big way. So we're going to see Lana Werewolf coming to play tapped here. And you're going to see Nettle Sentinel coming to play tapped as well. Michael's just going to pass the turn. His development is basically going to be stunted every turn. So it's going to take him a little bit longer every single time. As you see, Chad sacrifice that Verdant Catacombs, go down to 18 to get another Savannah here on Michael's end step. See if Chad does have any of his enchantment drawing cards, Argothian Enchantress and Enchantress's Presence. He has 4 copies of each. Integral to the deck to find those to get everything online.
And something you might see Michael do here, since you know it's going to be much harder to combo out, and this is another dimension that Elves has. Actually, might just start going beatdowns. He's got 5 points of power in play, plus more guys in his hand.
And you know that's one of the things that this deck actually does quite well, that people don't realize, that you can just give a beatdown. And while Chad is floundering around looking for ways to get his card drawing engine online, if he doesn't do that, he can just take it on the chin.
Yep.
As you are going to see a Rule of Law here from Chad.
I believe that's Rule of Law and an Extort trigger.
There is an Extort trigger there.
But yeah, Chad's still without any engine. He's got a Utopia Sprawl and Elephant Grass. He wants to sit on that Elephant Grass for a while. Nettle Sentinel doesn't untap.
Yeah, Nettle Sentinel will remain tapped, which hopefully our spotter will get to in just a moment here. No green spell cast just yet. Yep. And you do see him pointing it out there to Michael. And Michael just saying, all right, I'll cast a green spell in main phase 1 then.
So yeah, Chad's got a good shop set up, and he's trying to sandbag some of his enchantments. So if he does draw an Enchantress effect, he can just start going. So the Utopia Sprawl he doesn't want to play because he's good on mana, and the Elephant Grass he doesn't want to play because, again, he wants to hold it in case he draws an Enchantress Presence. He'd also rather save it for a better spot in the game.
Yeah, when there's just more things out there.
Right. So 1 spell a turn. Oddly enough, the 1 spell a turn, not really too big of a... Not actually really that prohibitive, as Michael, I believe, should just be beating down anyway.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised not to see the Dryad Arbors getting there as well. Yeah, and that's going to come into play tap too. So there's a lot of different things mechanically, yeah, that need to take place here. Just between Rule of Law and Blind Obedience, creatures coming to play tapped, only 1 spell a turn. Make sure that all the operations are good here.
And there's a Pithing Needle. So we're going to extort off of that. Figure out what we name with the needle here in a moment. So yeah, the Rule of Law surprisingly not doing very much just yet.
Yeah, you know, it's something that will eventually come up, I think, as we're going to see a crop rotation here.
The Python Needle is set to Elvish Lyrist.
Gotta be careful.
The fact
want
that
those enchantments to die.
The fact that Chad had the name of that card at the ready is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Maybe he's played this matchup more
I've
than
seen
you think.
I've seen you before, buddy.
Yeah. Elvish Lyrist, I believe, a Ursa Saga common.
Correct.
Oh. You see, I know my history.
Yeah. You're no slouch.
So I'm tapping here. Nettle Sentinel will remain tapped. The rest of the guys do get to untap.
Michael draws for the turn. Ooh, another Nettle Sentinel. That's a pretty sweet draw, too.
So now again,
As he just increases his clock pretty significantly.
yeah, again, with only one spell a turn, he has to make sure that he does cast the necessary ones here, gets the most out of it.
And that's tapped.
Yep, and that's going to be tapped.
And now here we go. Here comes sending the clowns.
Dried Arbors want to play too. Here they come. So this is an attack for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. And the thing that's really difficult here for Chad is, you know, he is trying to sandbag that elephant grass as best he can, but with Guy's Cradle out there,
Oh, yeah.
going to make it a little bit more difficult to do.
Yeah, Michael's equipped to keep attacking. Draws a Verdant Catacomb. So again, sitting on the Utopia Sprawl and the Elephant Grass. I assume we're going to grass and extort. Grass is an old school one we're going to want to bring up on the screen here.
Yeah. A different take on propaganda.
Well, it actually predates propaganda.
Oh, pardon me.
Yes. It's also green for some reason.
No one can explain why.
No, that's
no one knows why green would have this effect.
Well, it didn't. It didn't for very much longer. So yeah, it locks out black creatures, and
Of course it does.
each other creature requires 2 more to attack with.
So a black creature just can't get through the grass, but other things can?
Yeah. Because black creatures are used to living in the swamp, and elephant grass is not a swamp.
That makes sense to me now.
Yeah, it's just common sense. So right now the Cradle is tapping for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Assuming Michael plays a creature before combat, that's 6.
2 Nettle Sentinels, 2 Dried Arbors, Llanowar Elf, Quern Ranger. So the next thing he plays
Up to 7.
7, yeah.
So we can tap his Llanowar Elf for mana and attack with 4 creatures.
So you're going to see Quern Ranger, you're going to see 2 triggers here. Quern Ranger is going to come and play tap because of the Blind Obedience. Untap this. Yep.
He's going to return the Bio to his hand so he has an extra mana.
Just now it's just time to figure out how to navigate through this elephant grass and get this game over with before Chad can actually cobble anything together.
Yep.
This is part of the problem with the Enchantress deck, right? You know, if you don't have Argothian Enchantress or Enchantress's presence, you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, and a lot of the tools actually don't buy you that much time.
Yeah.
They're good when you're actually hard locking your opponent because you have so much mana and resources to work with. But Elven Grass and Rule of Law and Blind Obedience, those kind of cards, when they're not backed up by you actually threatening to go off, they aren't really doing all that much. So we have a Cradle tapping for 7. Bayou is up to 8 mana. So we're going to attack for 2 Nettle Sentinels plus.
It looks like
2 other creatures.
6 here, right?
Yeah, 6 is my count. I mean, you could tap a Dryad Arbor for mana and go up to an Llanowar Elf and get up to 10 that way, but he doesn't have 5 attackers in that world. So, yeah, I believe we're just sending for 6.
And again, with Chad being at 12, 6 twice is going to be probably good enough. Chad might go up to 13 the following turn because of an extort trigger.
Yeah.
So if he goes for 6 here and then is able to get in for 7 the next turn, then that will likely wrap it up. But again, it doesn't depend on what Chad does draw. Another Elephant Grass will be pretty good here, among other things. He just does really badly need an action spell.
Yeah.
And so you do see that attack here for 6 from Michael.
And even if he can find like an extort trigger, the problem is, you know, if he has to just fire off an enchantment, that just gives him less fuel to work with in the event that he has to, if he actually does rip an Enchantress.
Yeah.
So he's going to pay the cumulative upkeep on the Elephant Grass, draws another land, so his hand is now 3 lands and a Utopia Sprawl. So we can Utopia Sprawl and get an extort trigger.
He can get an extort trigger from that. And, you know, ironically enough, one of the big problems here is that rule wall may end up hurting Chad more than helping.
Right.
Because again, the elf deck that Michael's playing can just go manual and just go beatdowns on you.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen in this game. I mean, Michael's never been really in a position to go off. He doesn't even. It's not even like he's sandbagging Natural Order or Glimpse or anything. He just has his mana creatures and his Cradle. That's what he has.
Those creatures do still have power and toughness, and there happen to be a lot of them out there. So as Michael does look over things as far as what's concerned with the Utopia Sprawl, he is going to untap here. The Sentinels will stay tapped for now.
Each player with one of the cycle of rare lands from Saga. One from each color.
Yes. What's the red one? Shivan Gorge?
Shivan Gorge.
Yep.
Not quite as good as the other ones.
Tolarian Academy and
attention players.
Phyrexian Tower?
Yes.
Wow.
And the Gorge.
Yes.
In standard winner box,
They didn't like red very much then.
Is ready up here on the stage. Once again, players in standard winner box number 5. Your event has fired.
So I think we're just trying to make enough mana here to attack for lethal through the Elephant Grass, and Michael's just figuring out the best way to go through that.
Yeah. He looks like he is going to go through those iterations to figure that out, because he knows I just got to get in for 7 more points of damage, and I'm pretty sure that I can do it. If I could get in for 6 last turn, I'm almost sure I can get in for 7 this turn.
So I think it looks like Michael's got it figured out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cradle taps for 8. 3, 4. And then you just need to 2 more mana and get in one of the mana creatures. And this should be an attack for exact lethal.
No one man should have all that mana.
Yep.
Yep, that's it. Michael Tompson, 2-0 with his combo elves deck over Chad Bass's Enchantress deck. Chad never really got going. Game 1, played our Grothy Enchantress, was ready to untap and do some shenanigans, and Michael said, "You're not going to get to untap."
You're dead.
And then game 2, Chad just didn't really do much of anything, and Michael just finished him off with just some creatures, which is something that the elves deck can do and does relatively well.
Yeah, and